Welcome to Swish and Flick, an all Potter podcast.
Swish and flick. Everyone? Swish and flick.
Hello and welcome to episode 204 of Swish and Flick. I'm Tiffany.
I'm Megan.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Sarah.
And this episode is sponsored by Kelly Jackson. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So today we have a special guest host with us. We would like to give a warm butterbeer welcome to Lori Kim, the talented author of the book Snape, A Definitive Reading. Welcome to the podcast, Lori.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to talk Snape. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for agreeing to this. So we've been talking to you on Twitter for a while now, DMing, emailing, trying to get this set up. So I'm really happy that this is finally happening for all of us. Okay.
Me too.
So once again, we will be covering Chapter 2 of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Spinner's End. That's right, friends. We are covering it again. And this time, we are going over our own notes from the chapter, as well as Lori's writing on the chapter, and current thoughts. So we are using Snape, A Definitive Reading, pulling from the author, as well as our own brains. And I'm really, really excited.
I am too. I think we all need a good little breakdown on Snape. You know?
To find out if you really love him.
I don't love him. I appreciate his character.
Oh,
I say this endlessly, and you guys still are on my back about it.
Well,
those are your words.
yeah, you said it. But anyways, Megan, why don't you talk to us about some Weekly Prophet news?
All right, so they just announced 2 new VR experiences at the Harry Potter store in New York City called Chaos at Hogwarts and Wizards Take Flight. And me, Katie, and Sarah are actually going to go and do these, so that is exciting. I'm really excited. Katie doesn't want to do the flying one because she's worried about motion sickness.
Yeah, I want to do it.
I feel like I can't do any of these when I go.
Maybe.
You'll have to let
definitely,
me know.
like, if you have motion sickness, VR can.
It's just, I mean,
it's
screens are what mess me up a lot, and this is literally screen.
I didn't realize when I was asked about this if it was that it was a virtual reality experience, which I have never done, and I'm worried I'm gonna get like.
Do you just want to do one?
You gotta try both.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see.
Somebody's gotta try both.
I'm definitely doing both. I don't get motion sickness at all. I'm all here for it.
You're so lucky.
So the Chaos at Hogwarts one, the description on the Harry Potter New York website says, after missing the Hogwarts Express at King's Cross Station, an unexpected friend helps get us to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Students, Dobby needs your help after accidentally letting loose a case full of magical creatures.
Of course.
Journey through Hogwarts Castle and cast spells with your wand to immobilize pixies. Discover hidden secrets and find out if you can manage the chaos at Hogwarts.
Harry Potter did it. Psh, I can do it.
I think there's one thing to take away from this. Dobby is alive.
Right.
Oh no.
Oh,
Dobby.
So the description of Wizards Take Flight says, keep your brooms steady and fly into the wizarding world. Meet Hagrid at Nocturne Alley and follow him through the skies of London while dodging and battling Death Eaters, casting spells with your wand. Escape through the clouds and soar over the Black Lake towards Hogwarts Castle, where you can fly freely around the magical grounds. Accio Firebolt.
That sounds like Forbidden Journey.
Yeah.
Do you get into the store with this too, like automatically, or do you still have to wait in that line?
No, you do.
So wait, if you do tickets, you don't have to wait in the
Correct.
queue.
You get shopping time.
Genius.
Yeah, so I guess
Well, how much is this though?
$34.
So it's like paying to walk into the store if you just do it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's $34 per experience.
How long is the experience?
They say So, because there's some like Q&As on the website. So it says, can I book them back to back? And they say, give yourself an hour for each.
An
So, like,
hour?
But I think that includes like your checking in time, getting suited up and like the VR stuff, because you've got like the goggles and the hand things. And it's like, I did a VR experience at the celebration of Harry Potter, the last RIP celebration of Harry Potter and Universal. This was it was the last year that they did it. I want to say it was 2017. But they did one where you were
No,
in
it
Newts,
wasn't.
maybe 18.
No, we
17.
were podcasting.
So it was 17 then.
We were podcasting. Was it in the winter of that year?
It's in January every year.
Oh, there you
Was.
go. Okay.
And you got to go in Newt's suitcase.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And that was really, really cool. And that was technology that is like 5 years old now at this point, 4 years old, whatever.
Yeah.
So like it's
crazier
probably
now.
even better.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. So yeah. But now, yeah, they let you like pre-purchase your tickets, and then because you get in for the VR experience, you do not have to join the virtual queue to shop. You can shop before or after.
Sweet.
Yeah.
In between. Genius.
Right.
They're real thinkers over there at the Wizarding World.
So I'm gonna buy us those tickets.
We'll
tonight.
have fun.
Thank you. I will.
I wonder if anybody
I'll
can be in there
vlog
to
it.
like vlog you moving around.
I'm sure you can.
It does look silly.
It does. Anybody doing VR, like if you're like not in the
I mean,
VR,
you are
they look
immersed.
wild. Yeah.
Yeah. So make sure to follow us on Spotify by clicking the follow button on our page, and share this episode with your friends by clicking the 3 dots in the corner of the episode page. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube at Swish and Flick Podcast, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Swish Flick Cast. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, head on over to patreon.com/SwishFlickCast. Supporting our podcast keeps us going, and it gives you access to our exclusive Felix Files episodes, our Discord channel, live recordings, trivia games, Swish swag boxes, and more. Thank you all so much for your support. If you'd like to send in your Potter stories, questions, concerns, etc., you can do so to our email at swishflickcast@gmail.com.
Okay. I feel like I should be reined in on this one.
Why?
I don't know.
Why?
Because my
Let it
belly's
go.
full and I'm tired.
You can do a subdued one.
Maybe I could do it like Snape. How does he talk? How does he talk?
Just channel
Like a
your
drawl.
inner Alan Rickman.
Yeah.
Miss Petrus, give us the recap.
Oh my gosh.
I tried really hard.
I have to look at her 'cause that's how it goes. Well, now that I'm terrified. All right, so we did actually just finish up talking about Chapter 2, Spinner's End, on our chapter episodes. Snape answered more of Bellatrix's questions, and Narcissa asked him to help Draco with his mission from Voldemort, and Bellatrix is shocked when Snape asks her to act as bonder for their unbreakable vow.
Dun 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 dun.
Thank you. Beautiful sound effects.
So the summary that I totally wrote, we're diving deep into talking about this chapter again, but really focusing like on Snape and, you know, his Snapiness.
We're ready
That's what
for
we're
it.
gonna do.
We're ready for it. Okay, Lori, let's learn about you. I'm interested because I don't know these things about you yet. Your Potter profile. So your Hogwarts house is up first.
Ravenclaw.
I figured. I was like,
Anybody who writes an in-depth book on a character is definitely a Ravenclaw.
I felt that. I felt that in my soul. Were you sorted that way, or is that a house of choice?
Both, and a lot of times people assume I'm Slytherin because they think anyone who likes a Slytherin character could only be a Slytherin.
Yeah.
And that's I might have thought that way a little more before I had a kid that I raised as a Slytherin, but you know, the whole like misunderstood Slytherin thing is important to me.
Megan understands.
I do.
Yeah, I love a Slytherin, but I'm a Hufflepuff.
It is, oddly a good combination.
Yeah.
It is. We found that out a lot, actually. All right. Do you know your Ilvermorny house?
I got sorted, and then I realized Ilvermorny doesn't mean anything to me because I get the feeling of houses from knowing the characters and understanding. And Ilvermorny, we don't live Ilvermorny.
True.
Yeah.
So you get assigned one, and it's just a label.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing has happened with that. Yeah, and we've talked about it a number of times. Like, the information on that on wizardingworld.com really isn't there anymore. So we're wondering, are you scrapping it? Are you revamping it? Are you writing stories about it? Are there going to be novels? Because there was a history and a story with it.
We got a lot of pushback from that, though. Because
a lot of
my
pushback.
her pulling from...
My understanding about the Ilvermorny stuff, because there was enormous pushback and it was so overwhelming and legitimate, I think the author probably agreed, but because the information is Warner Brothers property, it's not like the author can say, okay, I retract, I take it down. So I thought, all right, from a PR perspective, I bet they're just going to quietly let it lapse and hope that nobody remembers. Because it was a fiasco. It was impossible to salvage.
Yeah.
But it's not a solo property like fiction is, so she can't just say, all right, you're right, forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good point. Well, let's move on to your wand.
I
your wand?
hope to be chosen someday by a cherrywood wand with a unicorn core.
Yeah.
I took it so seriously. Like, every time I've looked at wands, I haven't felt chosen, so like I can't have one.
No. Did you get it on wizardingworld.com or Pottermore whenever Pottermore was first? Did you get your wand that way?
I did, and I don't remember what it was, so, because I guess I didn't connect with it, so I, looked at every single wand core,
Fair.
and every single wand wood.
Yeah, the Ollivander writings. Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those
Yeah.
are. He's difficult to read. Like when you're reading about his writing about the different woods.
He is, to my mind, the quintessential Ravenclaw.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
And I thought that it was obvious before she came out and said that he's a Ravenclaw. It's like, okay, this, knowledge being more important than whether it's used for good or evil, total Ravenclaw.
Absolutely. Do you have a Patronus?
Pottermore tells me it's a dolphin. I am fine with that.
Me too.
That's Katie's.
Yes.
Awesome.
You can join my pod.
Oh. I get it.
Like a dolphin
A group
pod.
of dolphins is a pod. This is a podcast pod. Wow.
Katie's always on point with dad jokes. This is her personality.
Maybe it's just a dolphin Patronus thing you guys don't understand.
Maybe I don't. Okay, now, this last one, as brief as possible. If you want to give us, an overview, an introductory sentence on your feelings about Severus Snape.
Well, I do love him.
Okay.
He is my strength character. He has gotten me through any time I absolutely have to do something that I loathe with all of my being. And I could choose not to do it, but I wouldn't be able to live with myself, or it just has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
He has brought me strength.
Okay.
All right.
I like that.
All right. I have
I
not
like that
heard
too.
that before
I've
in that way.
not heard of that either, and I think that that's a really good point, and my brain automatically goes to the end of Goblet in the hospital wing
Yeah.
when Dumbledore is speaking with him, and he's basically says, you know what you have to do, go on. And that was the moment where his life was changed from different choices that he made when Lily died and he took on his role as a double agent. But, he had to go back to that life, back to that role again. And that's pretty devastating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty
It
devastating.
takes a lot of strength.
Absolutely.
I can't be brief. I have to say one other thing that I
No,
love
go
about
for
him
it.
the most. He reminds me, he's proof that you don't have to be a good person to keep trying. Anyone has the right to keep trying. If you're bad inside, whether you really are or other people think you are, or whether you feel like you're bad, you have not disqualified yourself from life. You can still be useful. You can still live up to your own standards, even if nobody else thinks anything of you.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
that
a really
has
good
been
point.
helpful to me.
It's a really good point.
I think Lori and Jess need to meet.
Oh my gosh.
Can you
Oh my gosh, our
imagine?
friend Jess
She loves Snape
she loves Snape.
and defends him, much like I'm sure you will. And I just really want to see your brains meet.
Great.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
All right.
She is the first person who ever told me about this book. Just saying.
Ooh.
Jess is?
Yep, Jess
Oh,
told me about Snape,
wow.
a definitive reading. She's like, I
Shout
know
out
that
to
you say that
Jess.
you don't like Snape. You have to read this book.
Well, honestly, Lori, what I really enjoyed about your book is that you don't shy away from the quote unquote bad things that people say that he does. You lay them out, like his treatment of, say, Hermione. Like, you don't skate around the fact that, like, he speaks to her in a way that's not appropriate. And that's what I really enjoyed about your writing is, like, you talk about him
You
as he
acknowledge it.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and
the thing about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, but I just, to sum that up, I enjoy what I have read so far.
The thing I noticed about the Snape character when I was reading the series before it was finished was that every time you thought he couldn't get worse or have a harder life, or that his position couldn't get more impossible, it just kept loading on more and more and more. And I thought, okay, that's the point of this character.
Yeah.
If you're going to have somebody do something good that's really hard for them, they can't just be like a more or less okay guy.
Yeah.
You know, like every time you think, oh, surely now he's going to become the good person that we all want people to be. No, he's not. Because it's hard for him. And the contrast is there are people who were born good and life comes super easy to them. And I thought, Lily Evans is portrayed as one of those people.
Yeah.
Like, I bet she did not have acne.
Probably not.
Good point.
And she didn't do anything to do that. It's just like some people, it's easy to be good. They are good. And some people, it is so hard. And so if they want to do something that's not evil, it's just uphill all the time. And I thought it is not correct to interpret this character without noting all of the ways in which his natural personality is not great.
Yeah.
And then he still makes himself do stuff because he's decided that it's right, even though it would be easier for him in every way to just say, forget it.
You're so right.
Yeah.
I mean, he's working an uphill battle every single day.
Yeah.
Every single day. And
I loved it. Sorry.
No, that's okay. And just even you talk about, his natural personality, how you're born, who you are, and then given his outside circumstances with the way that he grew up and his parentage and all of that and how his school years went, it's like that just, like you said, it loads on even more.
Yeah, I mean, his school years, I don't have any patience for looking too deeply into how hard of a life he had as excusing him becoming a Death Eater, because in life and in this series, there are people with way worse backgrounds, and they did not become Death Eaters. He had no business becoming a Death Eater. What was he thinking?
Yeah.
No, so it tells you how a person feels, but it doesn't determine your course.
Sarah, what were you going to say?
No, I just really loved at the beginning of this chapter talking about like the parallels. I had never thought about that. And like, this is why I like, one reason why we do the podcast is because we're bringing different perspectives from each of us talking about the books, and then even getting someone else's perspective of how there's such a parallel with like the whole him with at the beginning when he first told Voldemort about like the prophecy and all of those things, to now he wanted to choose Lily and all those things, and now he's choosing to help Draco, and that whole correlation, like I never thought of that, and I was like, I'm like, where's my pen? I'm like, I need to mark my book up. This is so good. Like I never thought about, like, because it's all like the same people. It's just, it was so good.
Yeah, I've been texting them. I'm like, oh my gosh, because I love when, like Sarah said, like different brains getting together and just figuring things out.
He's just trying to do the right thing, and it's one of those things where like the world doesn't know, and he's not really doing it for them, because he's like, just let them think what they want, and I know what, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to choose the right thing.
Yeah.
The better thing, you know?
Yeah.
And actually, he does wish that the world would know. That's what makes him brave.
Yeah.
Because it totally galls him. In a natural human way and also in an immature way, he wishes that he could get credit for everything. And the fact that he accepts this job.
The only person that can give him that credit is Harry.
Well,
Dumbledore.
you know, Dumbledore, but he's got to
dead.
kill Dumbledore. So
He's dead, so.
So, I mean, that's the thing that's brave, because humans are not built to be seen as bad when we know that's wrong and that we're good inside. I mean, the human response to that is, you know, if somebody thinks bad of you and they're wrong, how your voice comes out in this wimpy little crying whine. Like that's his that's sort of his everyday, and he has to take it.
Yeah. Yep.
Well said.
All right, so we said it, but we're not playing bingo today, so no one can get space.
So
I'm starting on page 165 of Snape: A Definitive Reading with Lori Kim. I'm heading down to the Spinner's End portion. So I like how you discuss Spinner's End and how you broke that down, because I feel like I made a similar comparison to you, but you went so much more, and I'm so glad you did, because I learned a few things along the way. So Spinner's End is a former mill town, and then I was like, well, you know, what if some of our listeners don't know what mills are? So they're these large looking wheels, and they use kinetic energy moving bodies of water in order to drive machinery and generate electricity. So what the internet is telling me, it's literally called sciencing.com.
Sciencing.
I love that. It reminds me of Marty. So mills could be used to like grind grains into flour, for example. They were used in ancient Greece, and I actually know of one that is still working today by my hometown. And they use it to make ice cream, which I
can't
thought
they
was pretty
also
cool.
be like in water to get energy, right?
They use water. Yeah.
They're always in water.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Spinner's End, former mill town, and according to you, Lori, you said Spinner refers to the now defunct Muggle industry in a working class part of town, and End reinforces the decline with evidence shown in the streets, in the houses with broken windows and such. And I really enjoyed that, because it drives that wedge further between someone like Bellatrix entering the streets and Snape, who she already, you know, loves to hate. But I loved that.
Well, I think it was meant to be a cotton town, I think, cotton mill, which is an industry that died out in English towns in the early 20th century. So for U.S. listeners, the comparison would be like Flint, Michigan. You know, that used to be like a thriving auto industry town, and then just became more and more poor.
Great
and
comparison.
Full of people who used to have a living and then didn't, and then what happens to people when that whole industry goes away. So it's supposed to be, you know, like desolation. And and the whole time that, like, we've seen for 5 books until now, we've seen Snape with the Death Eaters, who are incredibly snobbish, and they put down poor people and non-purebloods, and he never says anything, but we see now, this gives us an idea of what he's been thinking while they've just been yammering on in front of him.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And like I said earlier, I think that this is a great way for the author to bring attention to and draw the divide between the status of Snape and the status of, say, the Malfoy and Lestrange family and Black family as well. Because the Black family, obviously, they had some cash too. And Bellatrix even draws attention to this in the chapter, and she views herself in such a way, don't you think?
A little bit.
Even though girls
said a bad word.
I said a little bit.
A B word.
Oh, goodness.
I did not.
No, but she is,
Play back the tape.
Girlfriend has a lot to say for being in jail the past, 14 years.
Mm-hmm. She was
Please.
just being so loyal to her man.
So loyal.
Sitting in jail.
So loyal. And so, can you go on to say, Spinner also evokes the Fates. Never drew that comparison in my own head, who spin, measure, and cut the threads of human lifespans.
Like in Hercules.
It made me think of Dumbledore. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go to Hercules, you go to Dumbledore.
No. I went to Hercules because do they share an eye?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
But no, it just made me think of the measure of his life. Snape literally said maybe a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who knows? And so the Fates, and I don't know how to say this. Does anybody know how to say that?
Morai.
Morai. Are the group
More eye. They only had one eye. They shared it.
Oh, Catherine. Are the group of 3 weaving goddesses who assign individual destinies to mortals at birth. Their names are Clotho, the spinner, Lachesis. Lachesis? I don't know.
Lachesis?
The Alater. And
Lachesis. My
Lachesis.
last try was right.
And Atropos, the inflexible. In the older myths, they were daughters of, is that Nyx?
Mm-hmm.
But later, they were more often portrayed as the offspring of Zeus and Themis. Uh-huh. Anyways, I'm not going to read the rest of that. But I just thought that was pretty cool. And I got that from GreekMythology.com.
I literally just keep picturing the scene where Meg is dying and they're getting ready to cut the thread of life in Hercules, and it's going in slow motion.
Oh my gosh.
I love that we can.
She was dead, Megan.
Well,
he
true.
was dying.
This
That's
is true. It was
He
about
was dying.
Hercules, wasn't it?
I love that we can draw all everything you've listed so far makes sense. But it's multiple different things that you could draw from it. So maybe it's all of them. Maybe it's just whatever fits for you. It's just really cool.
Yeah. Yep. I love it. And this next thing also didn't know. You also said that Spinner could also evoke the phrase the distaff side, which means having to do with feminine side of life. Had no clue what you were talking about. So I was like, let me look up that term because I don't know. So according to freedictionary.com,
I love the websites we find.
the female side or branch of a family compared to spear side, which would be masculine, and also a stick used for holding yarn when spinning.
Oh.
Yes, and I just thought that was super, super interesting. And so you said that this would be a good place to find stories about mothers.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Lily. Narcissa. I love that.
Bellatrix.
And
That's
his own mother.
And his his own mom.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that?
So I am a fiber artist.
Okay.
I knit and crochet and I quilt.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing is that I'm about the same age as the author. So we probably read all the same books on folklore and mythology.
Uh-huh.
Because I definitely can see a difference in how I understand the author's sources compared to people who are a generation older or younger than I am. Because, all these references make sense because they're all drawing from the same Greek mythology. But especially the fates spinning and measuring and cutting the thread, there's a trio nature to that that's similar to Deathly Hallows. And there's something about Snape that's very feminine witchy. Like, there's patriarchal knowledge, and then there's Snape who, he looks like a witch. He's got the hooked nose. He's not very manly. Like, Sirius and James laugh at him all the time. He's just not very manly. He does potions like a witch. And this is a strange thing to think, but he's not patriarchal at all. He's actually quite matriarchal, and the title of the book, as we see, is him identifying with his maternal line. And the book completely emphasizes that if we only cared about mothers and matrilineage the same way we care about paternal line, then all of these mysteries would not have been mysteries. If we knew Tom Riddle's mother's family's names, if we knew Snape's mother's name, then
You're blowing my mind. I love this so much.
And that's what Hermione keeps saying. It could be a girl. It could be a girl.
It could
and
be a
even
girl,
though she's not accurate about Snape being a girl, she's right that you have to go looking at the mother's line. And you have to do research because it's written out of the records unless you know where to look. That's where we go looking for Merope. The way that, like Snape calling himself the Half-Blood Prince, it's not a mystery.
Yes.
So, by this time in the series, we have noticed that people talk about James's friends, but we never hear anyone talk about Lily's friends. And she puts in those Easter eggs like, but Snape hated my mother and father, and nobody corrects him. So, and then we find out that like the key to Voldemort is his mother, and the key to Snape is his mother. So it's all set up to say the key to Harry is going to be his mother.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. That's so good.
That is so good.
It's so good.
I'm so happy you're here. Okay, so I wanted to read this last little part because this is the part that I enjoyed the most from this section. Lori, you write, Snape has been characterized as a spy and a spider throughout. At Spinner's End, Narcissa and Bellatrix are seeking him at the center of his web. Finally, Spinner suggests a male version of spinster, Snape's single state as he approaches middle age. Why didn't I think of that?
Mic drop.
Yeah.
That is perfect. That is absolutely perfect. And that's the part that I was like, absolutely. Absolutely. And so Spinner's End is not hidden like other places in the wizarding world, like Hogwarts per se and Grimmauld Place. There's nothing magical that keeps muggles away. And according to you, Lori, as far as we can see, there's no siblings or parents. So as far as like the reader is concerned, Snape is the sole owner of this home and probably likely inherited. So that's,
I can't imagine that it's not.
Yeah.
Because it's really funny how you can tell, oh, he didn't even, swap out the furniture. I'm sure it's falling apart. He doesn't care.
I wonder
That's
how
not the
often
kind of
he
thing you
went
do.
there before Voldemort's return. Or is this used like Grimmauld Place was used, for the headquarters of the Order of the Phoenix? Like, is this now secondary headquarters, if you will?
There's no evidence either way.
No,
I
it
feel
seems
it's
like
not.
I feel like he wouldn't want to go back, but
Well, actually, the evidence, if you're going to say that he probably did go back, the evidence is the books.
yeah.
Yeah.
Truth.
Yeah.
I would say that he probably only goes during summer. He probably like volunteers to stay for Christmas, stays for their little like spring Easter holiday that they get, and just goes back for summer. And their summer breaks are really short. So it's probably just not used except for like 2 months a year.
It makes me think of Harry and Voldemort, and that Hogwarts was their home.
For sure.
Oh boy.
It is green. It is me.
Go green, go.
So like we were just saying, like you can see whenever we're talking about the descriptions of the room and the house that it is definitely neglected. But we don't really know if the feeling of neglect or emptiness in the house is because Snape doesn't usually live there, or because he's just come from Hogwarts for the summer. So like what we mean by that, like, has he literally not been there for years and this just happens that he's come back now because Voldemort's back? Or is this just how the house is, like we were saying, and he doesn't change anything out and he's just there 2 months a year, so it's whatever? And I kind of feel like it's the latter. I feel like he has come back year after year, but just for the summer months. That's my opinion.
Why would you really change anything?
I tend to agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2 months. Like, what does he really care what the furniture looks like?
Grimmauld Place was never
is
until Molly got there.
Hogwarts.
You know, because
Well,
no one was there except Creature.
What I like about we see so much about Snape in this chapter just from the description of his house. I get the strong feeling that he doesn't care about anything as long as he has his books. And I looked to see Snape does not spend money. He does not like material things. He doesn't, fantasize about like a firebolt or the Elder Wand. There's no thing he wants. He doesn't care. He spends his money on books. That's all he cares about. And so why should he care if the furniture is falling apart as long as he can read? And then I thought, the elf-made wine is dusty. So, yeah, I think you're right. He does come back in the summers. I think he had that a while ago, and he's kept it there and, never touched it. The description of how neglected it is, I think it's supposed to set up a parallel to the beginning of Goblet of Fire when Voldemort comes to the neglected Riddle House.
Okay, yeah.
Because that's all full of dust. And then you see a contrast because Voldemort owns that house, but he never grew up there. He decided he deserved it more than the people who lived there, so he killed them and took it over.
Right.
And, Snape really grew up here, and Voldemort hides where he's from. Like, he hid a Horcrux in the Gaunt hovel. Snape does not hide anything. This is where he's from. You can find out he's not. You can, if you want Snape, you can just go knock on his door and he'll be right there.
Yeah.
And that's a contrast that I think it's sort of like, well, if you need Snape, you have to get dirty to get there. And it tells you how much of an advantage he has because he's coming from so much. Like he understands the rich Death Eaters that he's with, and he understands a lot of other kinds of people too.
I think that it also makes him be a more believable spy because he really doesn't hide much of who he is. And,
no, he's pretty open book aside from
and like we know that
double agent.
Voldemort is surrounded by a lot of people who are very wealthy. So you would think that might be something that Snape wants to hide from him, but he doesn't.
No. Yeah.
So I think that is just another thing that shows like he really is putting his whole self into this double agent. I mean, otherwise he would be dead in like a day, right? Like he's clearly super talented and knows what he's doing and is willing to be an open book to make sure that things happen how they're supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So we kind of talked about this a couple minutes ago, but we talk about how like was the furniture just family property, like, or the books, were they family property? Did he acquire them as an adult? I suppose it's a mixture of both. I'm sure that this is a very long growing collection, and a lot of them are from when he was younger and maybe even some of his mom's books.
Yeah.
and also like new ones that he has acquired. But the age/state of the furniture tells us that this sitting room is basically the exact same as it has been since Snape's childhood. He doesn't seem to be the type to do interior decorating, in my opinion, unless it's adding more books to the collection and maybe some more bottles of weird potion ingredients. And yeah, so I already said this. I think that he comes home in the summers, and that's partially why it feels neglected. This is when Narcissa and Bellatrix ask if they're alone, and then we learn at this point that Wormtail is there.
Wormtail?
Wormtail. I don't know.
Toil.
And there's a wall of books with a hidden door and passageway. Just want to say that was a dream of mine. To, like, have something like that in my
That's
home.
like the ultimate.
Right. Like, yeah, I want a hidden passageway that's hidden by a whole bookshelf. Like, how cool would that be?
Do you think that's always been there? Or is that a Snape creation? Is that his interior design?
I don't know.
I imagined when I first read that, I got chills because what we know about him, you know, in book 5, when we saw his memories of crying and adults are shouting, is that he was in a house of conflict. And we know that, you know, the one thing we know about Snape is that he always loved reading and learning. And the whole phenomenon of being a child escaping domestic turbulence by escaping into your memories and your mind with books, I thought that was one of the author's really poetic architectural ways to capture that feeling that I just think a lot of people who read this series know that feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of envisioned that always being there as like his place.
It makes me wonder if he went there while his parents were fighting, and
For
that
sure.
was the place that he escaped with his books.
Yeah, I agree. But most importantly, what on earth is Wormtail doing here?
We need to really talk about this.
Like, we talked about it a little, but I think that we like just scratched the surface.
And I think that I agree with one of your points, but I'm going to let you start, Lori. Why is he there?
I wondered for a long time, what is he doing here? First of all, helping Snape with what?
Correct.
Right.
You know, if you were Snape, would you let Wormtail help with anything?
No.
And so, but we do see Wormtail making his completely pathetic little attempts at spying, which are laughable.
Right.
And the thing about Wormtail is the characters all laugh at him, but the author laughs at him. Like, the author hates this character.
Yeah.
So, you know, so of course he's making his attempts to spy are completely doomed. And so you think Voldemort has told him to do that. He's said, you know, why do I have to go to Spinner's End? Why are you banishing me? And, you know, Voldemort would insult him and say, well, now I have real Death Eaters. I don't need you.
You're annoying.
But
Thanks for bringing my body back to life in a
Yeah.
certain way, and goodbye.
Yeah, I will now bite the hand that fed me.
Yeah.
But you know, if you want an assignment, sure, you can spy on Snape and see what he's up to. And someone like Voldemort always does that. He always sets his followers up against each other. That's how he stays ahead of them. So he's doing that. But I thought, okay, why else is Wormtail there? And it took me a long time to figure this out. Oh, and later on in this book, Harry mentions this too, that it was Snape and Wormtail who sold out his parents. So it's setting up a contrast that these two people did that. One of them regrets it and wishes he could go back in time and make a different choice. And now he has the opportunity to save somebody's kid and make a different choice, and maybe he can change something. And to that end, he's putting himself through unbelievable rigors. And the other one never regretted anything, does not, is not worth the time of any of these people, even like disgusting people like Bellatrix. It's like, no, you're disgusting, go away.
Yeah.
And so, because one thing that, especially before the series was finished, one of the theories about Snape was, oh, he's not loyal to Voldemort or to Dumbledore. He's only out in it for himself. All he does is try to do whatever's to his own advantage, which always puzzled me because
I don't
know the things he does are so onerous. Why would anybody do them if they weren't trying to believe in something? And Wormtail, as the contrast, is like, no. If you want to see somebody who really is motivated by that reason alone, that's what that looks like, not like Snape. Because Wormtail doesn't believe in anything, as far as I can tell, except just like keeping himself alive in some miserable way.
I think at first he was going for some portion of power with who he hung out with and going and, helping Voldemort on his way back. And then at this point, he's just trying to hang on.
Yeah, and there's no common thread to any of the people that he throws in his lot with, except that he wants to be where he might stay alive the longest. And, even Voldemort, says to him, oh, you don't even believe in me.
Yeah.
You're just here because you think I'll protect you.
Like, literally.
Yep.
Yeah.
The way he dies is so just justice.
I know.
That's intense. Yeah.
It is intense. That's it felt like a life debt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Where are we here, kids?
I think we kind of touched on everything that was in the section, honestly. I just want to say again that this whole so for a long time, my thoughts on Wormtail being there, I never for 1 second thought that Voldemort told Wormtail to spy on Snape. But thinking about it now, I really like what Lori added in to the notes here that said that it's the author's trick to direct the reader into looking out for a deeper and more complicated story where Snape is concerned, and that they try to, people like Voldemort like to pin their people against each other. So even though Voldemort may not have truly cared about what Wormtail may or may not report back to him, it was the whole idea of spying, and it would make them go against each other to cause tension and division, and trick us into questioning Snape more.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Is Voldemort like drama?
Voldemort is a drama queen.
I honestly, Voldemort had to be completely sick of him. So he's like,
For sure.
Please get him off my
For
hands.
sure.
get out.
Oh, I'm going to do you a favor, Snape. Here is Wormtail for some help. I don't know with what, but there you go.
I'd be like, thanks, no thanks,
Thank
Bob.
you, my lord.
Oh,
my
gosh. Yeah,
Sorry.
Wormtail sucks.
Is it me now?
Yeah.
Whew. Okay. So now we're moving on to, honestly, basically Snape versus Bellatrix. So we've talked a little bit about this. Every suspicion that Bellatrix has about Snape, she doesn't trust him. She says that straight up. No, I don't trust you, and you know that. But she's right. She's right about everything she thinks about him. But if Snape didn't have an answer to every single question that she's going to ask, he'd be dead, because obviously Voldemort has asked all of those questions. So no matter what she comes up with to challenge him, Snape and Dumbledore have already crafted all the perfect answers. Again, otherwise Snape would not be in this chapter. And Snape is smart.
Or alive.
Yeah. Snape is smart. I might not like the guy, but he's very smart. He doesn't just answer the questions, he turns them on her, and he points
answers
out
them so well.
Yes, he points out her weaknesses and uses it to further along his cover and his spy cover. She still isn't convinced after it all, but she does get a pretty thorough verbal beatdown. So let's break down Bellatrix's weaknesses that Lori has laid out for us so nicely. So number one, Bellatrix cannot admit that Voldemort has flaws. So she's asking all these questions to Snape, and Snape fires back, again, Voldemort's already asked me this. So it's either enough for you, or you're saying that I fooled, quote, the Dark Lord, the greatest wizard, the most accomplished legilimens the world has ever seen.
Oh, but you did.
Right. Is he the most accomplished legilimens the
would
world has ever
say-
seen, or would that be Snape?
That would be Snape.
Yeah. 2, she cannot criticize Lucius in front of Narcissa. We're going to talk about more of this in the next episode, I think, but just real quick, Bellatrix she can't risk more tension with how Narcissa already is right now. She's very fragile at the moment, which I think would only come from Bellatrix with this like sisterly bond, because she didn't give a crap about anybody except herself.
Yeah.
3, Snape has more to offer Voldemort than Bellatrix. I put, oh snap, because it's true and she probably hates every second of it. Snape has like real practical info about Harry and Dumbledore. And he does point out to her that what he has to offer is, quote, a rather more useful welcome back present than endless reminiscences of how important Azkaban is. So he's like, yeah, you were sitting in jail. Big whoop. Look what I can do.
Look what I can do.
4, Bellatrix wanted something from Voldemort. Yeah. But Snape doesn't. So Bellatrix does what she does basically to like prove herself to Voldemort. Oh, I'm so devoted to you. And I really like what Lori points out. It feeds Voldemort's ego, but it doesn't further his campaign. So yeah, it's great to have someone, your little crony, like talking you up, but like she doesn't offer anything to like further his plan. Unlike the actual Death Eaters, Snape doesn't want anything from him. Lori says not favor, not protection, not support for a racist agenda. This gives him greater freedom to focus on exactly what Voldemort wants. I'm excited to get into this because, I think we're lucky that Discord isn't on right now, or they'd explode.
100%.
So she titled number 5 as, what kind of Slytherin are you anyway? What are you, a Hufflepuff? So Bellatrix criticizes that Snape stayed at Hogwarts instead of going to Azkaban in the name of loyalty to Voldemort. So Snape's like, yeah, I stayed because it was convenient to have a comfortable job, and I stayed out of jail, so I used it to my advantage. So here's our big debate that I'm going to throw in here.
I'm so excited.
I know this is a Snape-focused podcast. However, we all think that Bellatrix should have been placed in Hufflepuff as opposed to Slytherin. We're not saying she's not a Slytherin,
Yes.
but
I kind of feel like she could have been a hat stall.
yes.
And she went to Slytherin by choice because she would never be seen in Hufflepuff.
Now, they had to convince me because, like, I don't want her in my house. Ew. But it makes sense to me. So I was just wondering what you thought about that. Just quick, like, just hearing that first thing. What do you think?
Yeah, when you wrote that, what are you, a Hufflepuff? Like, were you referring to Bellatrix?
Yeah, I was referring to Snape laughing at Bellatrix,
Okay.
thinking that, I mean, all the other stuff she's saying, yeah, sure, a good Voldemort follower should be doing the stuff that she recommends. But this whole, like, you weren't faithful to him, you weren't loyal to him. It's such a weak argument in a Slytherin emotional economy. It's so funny to Snape. He's like, I don't even have to refute that. Can you hear yourself?
Yeah.
Like, all he does is repeat it back, which I think is hilariously insulting. Like, wow, I didn't even have to do anything for this one, Bellatrix. You just owned yourself. Because I was so curious, like, what great debate, and so is it the Bellatrix is a Hufflepuff debate? Yeah, I mean, this is a major part of her personality, and so I would have been perfectly fine putting her in Hufflepuff. I think her her snobbishness due to class and status and inherited wealth. And also the way, she's very status conscious, which is a more Slytherin trait. And also, one thing she doesn't have that is a general Hufflepuff trait is the belief that we're all the same inside, humans. And I mean, of course, there are Hufflepuffs who don't live up to that.
Right.
And there are people from other houses who do believe that, but she's so much into hierarchy and into dehumanizing others and justifying oppression after dehumanizing them. And I could see that is, because we see her loyal to to Narcissa and to Voldemort. And meanwhile, we see her be hierarchical and oppressive to everybody else.
Right.
So, if she had been put in Hufflepuff, I would not have blinked.
Right. And one thing that we talked about, and I think that I brought it up, is people were throwing out justice as far as Hufflepuffs go. Well, justice to one person isn't the same as justice to another. Just to her would have been, Muggles under rule, purebloods on top. And that would be a just life for her. And we can think about goblins with that as well. It would be just for them to have the materials that they made back. We talk about the Sword of Gryffindor, the tiara that passed under Griphook's nose and all of this stuff. So it's like what's just to one person isn't necessarily what's just to another. And I think that what she thought justice would be in the wizarding world is the world that Voldemort would build. And so that's why we argue really hard that, yes, she is a Slytherin, because I think that she valued the status and, the purebloodness more and was in Slytherin house for different
also,
reasons.
Familial, right? Her family would not have been okay had she been anything but Slytherin.
But I think that Hufflepuff would be a very close second.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that she's really into killing members of her own family who aren't pure of ideology argues more Slytherin than Hufflepuff.
Absolutely. Which is why I think that she's in that house.
Yeah.
So I think maybe we confused some of our listeners, but I think they thought that we thought that she was Hufflepuff rather than her second house.
Could have been.
She's a strong secondary Hufflepuff.
I agree. I agree.
All right, next point. Thanks for hashing that out with us.
Yeah, so Lori's on our side, so we win.
So the next one is Bellatrix is competitive with all of the Death Eaters. Now, according right in here, I think I misinterpreted it wrong. So, Lori, if you want to take it away, please do. This is the part when she's asking, like, why didn't you help Voldemort get the Sorcerer's Stone? Why were you late to Voldemort's rebirth party? Like, questioning...
Rebirth party!
Questioning his loyalty, basically. I don't know.
I think that's like a legitimate term.
Yeah, I do too.
I probably saw it somewhere.
I love that! Were there snacks?
Were there party hats?
You know what's funny but also unbelievably painful and sad is that I actually think that is exactly what it is, and that's because of the background, the childhood that Voldemort came from. I think Death Eaters and these gatherings really were his attempt to have birthday parties.
Oh.
And like, I'm not even kidding. And because I noticed that, so this is totally jumping ahead to Deathly Hallows.
Go for it.
The end of Deathly Hallows. After the walk through the forest, when Harry is approaching and like his hour is almost up, so Voldemort's sitting there with all his Death Eaters saying, "Where's Harry Potter? I thought he would come. I thought Harry Potter was going to be here."
He literally says that.
I swear every time I read that, I imagine like party hats are on crooked and like the balloons have lost the helium and they're starting to like sink.
Oh my god.
You know, because he doesn't have friends.
No.
You know, the only way he can have friends is by forcing them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Rebirth Party is exactly what that was.
Oh my god. I love it.
Oh god, but now I totally don't remember what we were talking about. Oh yes,
competitive.
When she says, "Why didn't you kill Harry during his first year?" And you know, why didn't you join with the Dark Lord when he was in Quirrell's head?
Literally.
And Snape says, "Oh, because Quirrell was mediocre," and I think he does that on purpose because Bellatrix loves hearing that other people are beneath her. And again, jumping ahead to Deathly Hallows, we see that, you know, at the beginning of Deathly Hallows when they have the Death Eater meeting and Voldemort is putting all of them down, and every time he picks on one, all the others like laugh and point, even though it's going to be their turn next.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the mood he encourages, and Bellatrix really has that. So I think that's one of the tools that Snape uses against her.
Got it. That makes way more sense than how I thought it was. So thank you. So next point, Bellatrix is losing favor with Voldemort while Snape is gaining. That's got a sting for her big time. She challenges just how useful Snape has been, and Snape says, well, maybe you don't know because you and Voldemort aren't quite so close anymore. He doesn't really confide in you as much. She don't like that.
Oh, that was mean of him.
Yeah.
But
Hit her
is
where
it
it
a
hurts,
lie?
you know?
He
Feels
phrases
true.
it in such a way too, like he's putting it in your head, but also like making her think it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's manipulative in like the best, most sinister way.
Sinister.
Well, the thing is, he's been saving that one up. And this is, remember in the occlumency lessons when he's really frantic at Harry and saying, you're wearing your heart on your sleeve, you're handing Voldemort weapons, you're giving him access to things that you fear.
Yeah.
And Bellatrix totally wears her heart on her sleeve for Voldemort. And you know that she's been staying up nights because she feels, you know, people who hang on somebody like that, they can, every little possible loss of favor, you feel it.
Yeah.
So she's been losing sleep over this. And he knows, and he's been waiting. And so he does that surgical little dig at the thing that's already been haunting her and eating away at her. And yeah, we didn't know until this chapter that she has a bond for Narcissa. Like, that's new information. But
Yeah.
we all knew she had it for Voldemort.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, she doesn't even bother to hide it. And Snape is totally using that against her.
Yeah.
It's a good weapon.
It really, like, I feel hurt for her, because it's so true and it's so embarrassing.
She's so obsessively like in love with every aspect of Voldemort. Like any little thing that happens crushes her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's constantly like, I'm his most like loyal, faithful, like I'm his number one soldier basically, and then she hears this and it's like, are you?
He's gonna be my baby daddy.
Well, even at the beginning of Deathly Hallows, the way that Voldemort speaking to her about, you know, Remus
family,
and family, he lifts her up, he
And then
crushes her,
He's so
and then he gives her a little bit right after. But you know, we all have to prune the dead branches from our family trees or whatever.
It's whiplash.
He says he is horrible. I mean, we know he's horrible, but like that's like, and right in front of everybody, just lift you up, crush you, give you a little bit. Like, she's crying in front of everybody.
But it's also deeply, I don't mean that as an insult, but it's deeply unoriginal in that every abuser does this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's fail-proof, which is, one of the flaws of human nature, that it's so easy to hurt people because if you get them into this, they all fall for it. Voldemort has never made good on any promises to uplift and honor any of his successful followers, but he lies and pretends that that's on the table.
Yes.
Yeah.
They all fall for it every time.
Yeah. And especially
Except
when
Snape.
the abuser knows exactly what makes you tick.
Yep.
So he uses the bloodline essentially, that your bloodline is disgusting.
Yeah.
And he uses that against her, and it's like, okay, honey, you're half blood.
Right. All right. Ha. Jinx, you may cook. The next point, Bellatrix failed to get the prophecy for Voldemort, which we know was a huge blow for her. So all Snape has to do is just remind her of that. And Laurie says, while parrying Bellatrix's accusations, Snape spreads Dumbledore's misinformation and protects himself as well. Very smart, very calculated. So far, fail-proof. They've done a good job. So the last part is we'll talk about Snape's self-protections. So Snape does want to avoid committing evil. So by staying on Dumbledore's side, he keeps his cover and is still able to be a spy. And he says this. He says, by allowing Dumbledore to think that I was only returning to the Dark Lord's side because I was ordered to, I've been able to pass information on Dumbledore and the Order of the Phoenix ever since. And he does take credit for the Order's losses. So Bellatrix doesn't think she's privy anymore to Voldemort's secrets, so she doesn't fact check things that Snape says, like when he says, well, my information led to the murder of Emmeline Vance and Sirius Black. He's already forced her to like kind of lose a little bit of faith in herself and like make her question how close she is to Voldemort when she wants it so bad.
Mm-hmm.
He's manipulative.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he's having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
You got to be manipulative if you're going to be in the role that he's in.
For
Correct.
sure.
But, she shows up at his house and she's this powerful, powerful witch, and she's looking at him like, I know what you're up to. I don't trust you. And you can see him like rubbing his hands.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah. He's described.
He's been waiting, I feel like.
Yeah, he's described as like a muse this whole time with her.
Yeah, it's like a game.
Yeah, definitely.
Like a game.
He's probably been waiting
He probably has a little
dish
notebook
this out.
in his cloak pocket, and he's like, say this to Bellatrix. Goodness.
Is it my turn?
It is indeed.
So we're now going to talk about the lies that Snape is going to be using to his advantage. So like the first one is Dumbledore doesn't trust Snape with Defense Against the Dark Arts. So from Half-Blood Prince, it seemed to think it might be... Wow, I cannot read myself. Being about a relapse... I don't know if that's right.
Bring about.
Yeah, bringing about. There you go. I was like, that's why that looks weird. Bringing about a relapse, tempting me into my old ways. So, like, both Snape and Dumbledore use this as an excuse to cover, like, not having Snape as that teacher, because they all know. Well, I'm assuming Snape knows that that position is cursed. Dumbledore knows because he admits it.
He says it
later on.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to use it as an excuse so that Snape is not going to be in that position, so then he would only be in it for a year because he needs to be around longer at Hogwarts for that. And it's just easy for others to like realize